Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's lecture is without a crowd because of this whole COVID-19 stuff. Is it safe to take this off yet? Good, because this won't do much to stop a virus anyways. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The two animals of our current era is EMFs and GMO foods, and tonight you get to learn about electromagnetic fields in your health. Following the lecture tonight, I normally do a Q&A. I'm not, since I don't have a crowd, but I have a special guest speaker who's going to give a 25-minute presentation about testing EMFs. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty tired of the censorship that's been going on lately. It's pretty obvious it's an election year. We've been flagged on our Facebook page. I've been flagged on my personal pages. We were warned 3 years ago from Google, a Google whistleblower, that they had a specific agenda going on, along with all these other social media outlets with their agenda going on. You've seen with Dr. Axe and Merkolov, they've been wiped off of the Google searches. They're putting on their searches what they want you to see, not what you're searching for. Tonight's lecture will be posted everywhere and multiple times, and as much as they will want to take it down, I will post it more and more. These doctors had some great things to say. What happened to freedom of speech now? What happened to freedom of speech in the United States? So many people are out to discredit everyone and anyone. And how are they doing that? Through your Google searches and your Wikipedia stuff. This is Andrew Wakefield stuff all over again. These California doctors had some very knowledgeable things to say that they kept trying to take their YouTube video down left and right. The bottom line is the panic and the numbers don't match. But fear has controlled many of you to think for yourselves. I've had some stuff flagged from my personal Instagram stuff. This is one of them. CDC shocks everyone with newly adjusted COVID-19 death rates from 60,000 to 37,000. This was the beginning of May. Is this true? Has this been a numbers game all along? We'll be talking about this a little later on. Is this stressing you guys out? Is everyone getting stressed out yet about this? Well, we'll be addressing battling adrenal fatigue in the fall. We are all over social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm very active on my Instagram page. I have held your guys' hand all the way through this whole COVID-19 stuff, giving you my protocols, going live about things, talking numbers. I've been very, very interactive with you guys. I've been a little too quiet on the blog. I will start blogging a little bit more again after this lecture. This is our team. We work hard for you guys. We put a lot of stuff together. We don't have to do these lectures. We don't have to put ourselves out there. We don't have to go against the grain. We work hard for you guys. If you guys have had a good experience with us, let us know. Give us some reviews. If you're a patient of ours, give us some reviews. We've had some people come out of the woodwork because they don't like what we're saying and they think that we're underplaying the whole COVID-19 stuff and bashing us on some reviews at people who aren't even patients of ours. If you would like to Skype with us and have health concerns, we would love to address you. We Skype with patients in and out of state and out of the country. And it's fun helping people all around. This was a gentleman I actually had a Skype appointment follow-up with yesterday, 37 years old. He originally had issues with Lyme disease in the past. He started using MMS. I'm not going to get into exactly what MMS is, but everyone started jumping on this whole MMS stuff, bandwagon stuff, thinking this was going to be what I should take for the whole COVID-19 stuff. And unfortunately, he overdid it with this MMS and pushed himself into acute liver failure. On his follow-up, I got his liver enzymes back down. We're getting them back and improving, but he overdid it with self-treating himself with a lot of protocols that some people are picking up on the web that I don't really, Dr. Tent, we don't really recommend. So I just want to kind of bring that to your attention. These are my little ones. Jackson's 3 years old. Ethan on the right just turned 5 years old. We've had a blast this winter and spring. My oldest just started jumping into, he skipped checkers and decided he just wants to play chess. So I'm like, wow, 4 years old and just wants to dive into chess. I'm like, this is great. So I got a chess partner now. Let's dive into some of this. Is it China versus the US or is it China versus the world? I'll let you decide. COVID-19, pandemic or plandemic? I'll let you decide. I'm going to start off by first saying that COVID-19 was here way before they were ever testing for this stuff. One of my personal friends, their child tested positive for this stuff in early December, recovered from it. For some reason, the media never caught on to that case and never grabbed wind of it. Dr. Tent and I had patients in the office all winter long with flu-like symptoms that were very well COVID-like, were swabbed for flu, and were not influenza A or B, which were most likely COVID. So this stuff's been here way before they ever started testing. Information I'm going to present you here with tonight has been previously blocked from other doctors' social media platforms. There's an agenda going on, and things that you thought were conspiracy are happening right in front of you. But fear paralyzes people to think for themselves today. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Let's go to Event 201, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It's just a great coincidence that a month or two before this whole coronavirus outbreak that they were practicing a simulated coronavirus outbreak and how the U.S. would respond to it out in New York. You can look up everything I'm telling you at the bottom of this the website's on the bottom of the slide. This was out in New York, October 2019. It's just a great coincidence that they were practicing a coronavirus outbreak. Let's talk a little bit more about Bill Gates because he's been interviewed the last few months. And the bottom line is he's saying no mass gatherings until we have mass vaccines. There's an agenda going on. Bill Gates' father, William Henry Gates, was a board member of the Planned Parenthood. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Bill Gates has openly talked about population control. Him and Fauci have mentioned vaccine IDs. What you guys really think were conspiracy things may be happening. Now, in the early 2000s, we had the SARS outbreak. This is an literature article from 2007. Eating exotic animals is a time bomb. But did COVID-19 really come from the wet market? I don't think so, and there's a lot of speculation that this did not evolve from the wet market. Coronavirus bioweapon, a hybrid virus which is far more deadly and can't be vaccinated against. This is State of the Nation, March 2020. Welcome to 2020, where viruses could be mutated in a lab and create a bioweapon. This here is a research article from Antiviral Research, April 2020. The spike glycoprotein of the new coronavirus 2019 contains a furin-like cleavage site absent in the regular coronavirus of the same clade. Furin-like cleavage site. Bottom line is that is a geoengineered lab-made virus. Let's go a little deeper. Engineered bat virus stirs debate over risky research. An experiment that created a hybrid version of bat coronavirus, one related to the virus that causes SARS, has triggered some renewed debate over whether engineering lab variants of viruses with possible pandemic potential is worth the risk. In an article published in Nature Medicine, scientists investigated a virus called CHC0114, or 14, which is found in horseshoe bats in China. Researchers created a chimeric virus made up on the surface proteins of this CHC014 and backbone of SARS virus that had been adapted to grow in mice and to mimic human disease. Who would fund such research? Although almost all coronaviruses isolated from bats have not been able to bind to the key human receptor, CHC014 is not the first that can do so. In 2013, researchers reported the ability for the first time in a different coronavirus isolated from the same bat population. The latest study was already underway before the moratorium began, and the U.S. National Institutes of Health allowed it to proceed. This was down in the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Maybe Dr. Shi knows a little bit more about this. Let's talk about her. Dr. Shi was paid well by the U.S. government and the Chinese government to fund research into coronaviruses. Fast forward to November 2019, a breach of containment occurs at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and patient 0 is detected somewhere between December 1 and December 12, 2019. With the outbreak of the new coronavirus, Dr. Shi is one of the authors of that published in the New Medical Journal January 2020, stating this is probable bat origin. She started work on the coronaviruses at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. They moved her to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and coincidentally, patient 0 comes from Wuhan. So, I guess we just got to continue to follow the money. Who would fund such research? Dr. Fauci backed controversial Wuhan lab with millions of US dollars for risky coronavirus research. Just last year, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the organization led by Dr. Fauci, funded scientists at Wuhan Institute of Virology and other institutions for the work on gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses. Interesting. Many scientists have criticized gain-of-function research, which involves manipulating viruses in the lab to explore their potential for infecting humans because it creates a risk of starting a pandemic from accidental release. Do you think this is accidentally or purposely released? Would be the next question.
Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
Dr. Fauci, 2017, there will be a surprise outbreak for the upcoming administration. How could he predict something like this? Intriguing. These are numbers just from yesterday, May 26, 2020. This is from the Worldometer, where as of right now, yesterday, 348,000 worldwide deaths in the United States, right at 100,000 deaths today, actually. In Michigan alone, what's being reported is just over 5,000 deaths. The beginning of May, there was things floating around on the web, and it started up some controversy that the CDC changed the total COVID-19 deaths count from 65,000 down to 37,000. Things were adjusted, but everything's been reported differently. At that time, and even still now, the Worldometer was reporting 65,000, where the CDC was reporting 37,000. Even with Michigan, and as of yesterday, checking these numbers, Michigan was just over 5,000, but the CDC has us just under 4,000. This has been a numbers game from the beginning. And in the United States right now, the Worldometer, 100,000, and the CDC has us at 73,000. The media's taking the higher number, shoving it down your throats on a TV. The models, the projections, all has absolutely been garbage. The numbers have been inflated. Even China, there's suspect that they're lying about their total amounts of deaths because their cell phone usage is down that dramatically that they're suspecting their counts should be higher than what they're reporting. One of the first reports, one of the first research articles about the testing was withdrawn, but brought up a lot of speculation because it was reporting that there was a lot of false positive issues with testing right off the bat. This is a new virus. How accurate could the testing be? And I suspect that there's still problems with the testing. There's a new PubMed article that was just out the other day. I was going to add on this lecture, but they're now talking about the infectivity of asymptomatic people carrying COVID-19 might be weaker than they thought. Now let's talk about some of the reporting. If you died of COVID, it was COVID. If you died of something else like suicide or pneumonia, and you tested positive for COVID, it was written off as COVID. Before they even had testing, if it was assumed COVID, it was written off as COVID. All these numbers have been inflated. Everyone on Facebook and all social media stuff, people are absolutely driving me nuts because you're trying to analyze numbers that have been inflated, reported wrong. Who knows what's going on in the other countries, but it's absolutely driving me nuts. But there's two bottom numbers that, as I get to the end of this, that you could focus on, regardless of these other inflated numbers. U.S. hospitals get paid more to label cause of death coronavirus. If you set up your hospital, close down the surgical centers, and close down everything that you're doing, and set up business as coronavirus, you're going to write off everything as coronavirus to make your money. The projections, the models, the media have all been garbage. This was early March. The White House predicts up to 200 U.S. deaths. As of now, like I said, the CDC has got that at 73,000. Now there's the fear. Now the next fear is the second wave. The fear of a second wave. You want to know what the second wave is? The second wave is suicides, small businesses going under, domestic abuse, substance abuse, divorce rates going up, poverty, unemployment, despair. That's the second wave right there. Well, let's talk about Michigan, because Michigan had a high outbreak of this. I'm Oakland County. We survived measles last year. We had a measles outbreak. I survived measles. Now we have coronavirus this year, and this is the map showing the red area where we had the higher outbreaks between that and Wayne County. Why did Michigan get hit so hard? Well, we have a Detroit airport that has international travel. That's one. Detroit in the Wayne County area, you got poverty, poor people with bad health habits, drinking, smoking, vaping, having bad diets, higher population density of people, higher content of African American people, which are notoriously known to have lower amounts of vitamin D levels compared to Caucasian people, which that has not been addressed, but there's a huge vitamin D aspect. If you followed my protocols, ACDC is one of the biggest things that I have all my patients on to help combat and work with their immune system with this stuff. My neighbor is a Wayne County officer. He is in the midst of everything. We have talked numerous times over this. I want to record him for his lecture, but I don't want to jeopardize his job. He said over 200 officers in our department got hit with this coronavirus. He's like, I'm 50 years old, and for the vast majority of us, it was minor symptoms for 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days, cold, flu-like symptoms, achiness, headache, loss of taste of smell, and that was it. The 2 people in this department that passed away in their 60s and 50s had pre-existing health conditions. 50 and above with pre-existing health conditions, those were the individuals that needed to take the precautions. And I talked about people who were younger. If they got hit on my Instagram stuff, the liver, blocking the liver pathway, blocking your immune system, you'll get hit harder with this. If you had the Epstein-Barr, you're going to get hit harder with this stuff. I'm not underplaying the severity of this. People have died, yes. Most of my patients on our immune protocols have done just fine. Everyone underestimates the power of real nutrition. I had one patient that was on a ventilator for 3 weeks that we almost lost. And he was one of my patients on my previous lectures. I talked about mold. His lungs were damaged from mold exposure, upper 50s, and I'm glad to have him back. Now we're working with recouping his energy and strength from what he's gone through. So I'm not underplaying the death and the severity of some of these people that got hit hard, but the population that you need to focus on, 50 and above with pre-existing health conditions, was the main thing. Let's go back to Oakland County. Medical experts say Michigan's coronavirus death count isn't accurate, but is it too high or too low? This is Dr. Daniel Spitz, medical examiner. In Oakland County, every individual who died while infected with COVID-19 was counted as coronavirus death. So yes, the numbers, ever since they've been testing, ever since everything's been inflated, and this is just how they're inflating this stuff. I want to post this because back in the day when I worked at the hospital, I job shadowed his dad, Dr. Warner Spitz. I job shadowed him at the Macomb County Jail. I thought that was interesting seeing him on this article that was posted. He goes on to further say in Macomb County, he had a recent case of someone who died by suicide, and because they had a family member in the hospital who suffered with the COVID-19, Spitz had postmortem tests done and found that the individual who died at home was positive for COVID-19. He had to still write off the death as COVID-19, still knowing it was a suicide. So let's go to 2009, swine flu year. There were 60 million cases worldwide. There was about 12,000 U.S. deaths, 200 to 500,000 worldwide deaths. Statistically, coronavirus is worse than the swine flu year. Every single year, the regular influenza virus, which has an ineffective vaccine, kills 20 to 60,000 people in the U.S. every single year. That virus mutates, and it's a guessing game. It mutates, so a vaccine's not going to do anything for that. 500,000 people worldwide die from the flu every single year. I want to bring these statistics up and this year up because this was the beginning of people losing their rights. And it started with your healthcare workers. They had the option of declining a flu vaccine. It was optional. After that year, if they didn't want a flu vaccine, they had to wear a mask. Then the year after that, if they didn't want to wear a mask, they were just going to be replaced with someone else. Now, this whole coronavirus stuff is going to be a push for more of the American people to lose their rights and see how much they could restrict you from traveling, mass gatherings, and who knows where this could go. I worked in the medical field as a patient transporter for 4 years. I got a lot of buddies I still talk with that are on the front lines at these hospitals. I'm not going to bash the doctors. I'm not going to bash the nurses. Be respectful. A lot of them have been affected being on the front lines with the coronavirus and getting hit with it. But other than the patient-to-patient contact, is there a reason that possibly they're more susceptible to getting this coronavirus over someone else? This was in Vaccine 2020, influenza vaccine and respiratory virus interference among Department of Defense personnel during 2017-18 influenza season. Receiving influenza vaccine may increase the risk of other respiratory viruses, a phenomenon known as virus interference. Vaccine-derived virus interference was significantly associated with coronavirus. Thought that was very intriguing. This was on Twitter. Dr. Paul Saladino, unpopular opinion. COVID-19 is not a superbug. The sad reality is that we have become a very unhealthy people, and this virus is exposing our vulnerabilities. I could not agree with this anymore. Almost 90% of COVID-19 admissions involve comorbidities, pre-existing health conditions. Two bottom lines. The survival rate, 98 to 99% survival rate. People with pre-existing health conditions, 50 and above, are the two things. Bottom line, don't underestimate nutrition and what nutrition and real immune protocols could do, because our patients have done very well with this. Dr. Tennant and I have not missed a beat in the office, and we've been healthy this entire time. You don't see them protesting in large groups like this in Hong Kong right now, do you? Communism works, although now there's a few flare-ups just in the last few days, but not in gatherings like this. Trying to understand the real political thing and how U.S. and the China stuff, going back and forth. Mike Pence and his remarks on the China administration policy towards China. This is a YouTube video. Thought this was pretty intriguing watching this video. China is a communist country that strives for world dominance. This is October 2018 when Mr. Pence gave this speech, and he, quote, I'm quoting him, China wants a different American president. China wants to influence the midterm elections. Between them and fake news, they are pushing very hard. Dr. Jeff, where do you stand on politics? I hate politics. You don't label me left or right. They've done nothing but kept us all divided. United we stand, divided you fall. That's my bottom line. The coronavirus outbreak could disrupt the U.S. drug supply. 80% of the basic components used in U.S. drugs, known as active pharmaceutical agents, or ingredients, come from China and India. That's interesting. If we are dependent on China for thousands of ingredients for raw material to make our medicine, China could use this independence as a weapon against us. Yes, they can. Save America, buy America. Support your local businesses. Small businesses, I'm already hearing horror stories, are going to have a hard time coming out of a lot of this. Sweden is right. The economy should be left open. They've been a benchmark for everyone because they didn't go into a strict lockdown like our police state of Michigan. And everyone's been watching Sweden, what their numbers have done, and they've done very well with this. They can't print money off like the United States can, so they've got to work. You quarantine the sick, not the healthy. That mask isn't going to stop that virus. That second wave is crap. If you're scared, stay home. 100% of this now is just political. Other states in the United States have been opened. There's no second wave. The United States is the first to open, so where they're getting this whole second wave stuff and scare, is just more agenda now. It's all political. You know, let's segue into some EMF stuff, because a lot of people have speculated, well, 5G and coronavirus. Dr. Jeff, what about 5G and coronavirus? Well, what about it exactly? Well, here's the theory. Radiation sickness and 5G. All these areas that, Wuhan and getting hit hard, the symptoms, you can see the symptoms on the left with radiation sickness and symptoms of viral infections on the right. A lot of people are speculating because of areas with 5G that this was more radiation sickness than it was a coronavirus. I don't know if I don't buy into this 100%. Can 5G affect your immune system? Yes, and it will. And there's a lot of things that can affect. I'm going to show you the literature on this towards the end of this lecture when I dive further into the 5G, but this is some of the things that they were talking about: radiation sickness, shortness of breath, dry cough, feeling of fullness in the chest, flu-like symptoms. Radiation sickness comes from ionizing radiation, not non-ionizing radiation. Wuhan City expected to have 10,000 5G base stations operating by the end of 2019. Yes, so this was why everyone kept jumping on this. It's 5G stuff. And while we were actually on lockdown, they were rolling out more 5G stuff all across Michigan. Who's going to be the canary in the coal mine? Who's 5G and more EMF radiation? Who's this going to affect? Who is the canary in the coal mine? Kids and animals. Kids and animals will be first affected. Scientists and doctors demand a moratorium on the 5G warning of health effects. More than 180 scientists and doctors from 35 nations recommended a delay on the rollout of fifth generation 5G for the telecommunications until potential hazards for human health and the environment has been fully investigated by scientists and independent from industry. Peer-reviewed research has documented industry influence on studies of the health impacts of wireless radiation. We are insisting on a delay on the 5G until non-industry research can be conducted to ensure the safety of the public. Lots of literature on EMF, but not so much on 5G is the big problem. Like I've said, I've talked about protocols and things to do in the office. Follow me along on the Instagram stuff. I want to do a lot more EMF testing. Some of the lockdown stuff prohibit me to getting out as much. I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. The body electric. As Yale scientist Harold Saxon Burr, who first used a voltmeter to test electromagnetic fields in the human body in 1936, once said, "Electricity is the way nature behaves. When your heart pumps electrically charged blood through your circulatory system, the process creates a powerful magnetic field that surrounds your body and can be measured." Contact reflex analysis, CRA, the testing that Dr. Tent and I do. It's muscle testing. You're working with the body's electricity. If I stuck my hand in that socket and I was getting shocked, I grabbed you, you would get shocked. All we are doing is creating an electrical circuit and muscle testing, and we're checking certain organ points and everything. Every single electron, cell, tissue, and organ in your body carries a specific frequency or range of frequencies and an electronic signature that can be measured. This is a voltmeter on a bomb. I did this, and this was pretty cool. I'm going to show you some pictures of this a little bit further on. Schumann resonance. The Earth has its own electrical frequency called Schumann resonance. Earth's natural heartbeat rhythm is a frequency of 7.83 hertz, also known as the Schumann resonance. A 7.83 hertz frequency is an alpha theta brainwave frequency in the human brain. Alpha theta brainwave frequency is relaxed, dreamy, sleepy state that is also when cells generate and healing happens. Here are your other brain waves, electrical brain waves. Electricity is the way of the body. This was a great documentary. Thank you for recommending this. Resonance, being of frequency. They did a real cool experiment in this where they put people underground in this capsulated thing blocking the Earth's frequency of that 7.83, watching what it does to people's mental state and how sick they got in a short matter of time was unbelievable. Well, we keep talking about EMFs. What are EMFs? Electric and magnetic fields are invisible areas of energy, often referred to as radiation, that are associated with the use of electrical power in various forms of natural and man-made lighting. As the name implies, EMFs are created when you combine an electric field with a magnetic field. Electric fields are produced by voltage, and magnetic fields are created as that current of electricity flows through a given direction. We're going to refer back to this chart a few times. I'm going to kind of pause on this slide so you guys could take a look at the electromagnetic spectrum. You've got visible light, you got ionizing radiation, non-ionizing radiation. 5G will be somewhere right in the realm here. Regular phone stuff, I'll show another slide as well. Regular 4G and everything's kind of shooting right towards this area. So you'll see some other areas on here, examples of some of the measurements. Henrik will talk about some of the analytical stuff as well when he gets up. How do EMFs cause damage? An increase in harmful free radicals, oxidative stress, and genetic damage. Well, let's talk about the difference between ionizing and non-ionizing. Low-level non-ionizing EMF radiation. These are EMFs that are frequency lower than visible light that include Wi-Fi, power lines, or Bluetooth. High-level ionizing EMF radiation. These are things that are higher frequency than visible light that include X-rays, gamma rays, and sunlight. The ionizing radiation, the excessive use of X-rays, gamma rays, sunlight, we know the cancerous, carcinogenic effects of that, but some of the stuff is a slow kill when you're around this constant low-level non-ionizing radiation all day long. Symptoms of EMF toxicity with sleep. Sleep problems and difficulties, suppressed melatonin, and this inhibits your pineal gland from secreting melatonin, so it throws off your night-day biorhythms, fatigue, lack of general lack of wellness. Mental and emotional symptoms, mental fatigue and headaches, difficult with concentration, memory problems, dizziness, seizures, irritation, anxiety, depression, suicide. I will have the quotes for the literature articles towards the end for things I'm talking about on this as well. General physical, headaches, physical fatigue, nausea, pain, inflammation, hypersensitivity, burning feeling in the bodies, skin, inflammation, redness, itching, pain, rashes, burning sensation. Your heart, blood pressure can be affected, heart rate variability, heart arrhythmias. Your heart is an electrical pump. Some of my patients that have this AFib stuff and irregular heartbeats, I've done some very cool things addressing EMF and having things turn around. I'll show you a case study of that coming up. Auditory, microwave hearing, tinnitus. I've got this in bold and underlined it because more people are getting this tinnitus stuff, and I swear they're soaked with EMF and being overexposed to your Wi-Fi, your smart meters, your cell phones, and now 5G stuff all around. Sensitivity, sounds, physical vibrations, foods, chemicals, and scents, other people's emotions. Stress, feeling stress and overwhelmed, wired and tired. Your increased stress adrenal response, stress hormones, cortisol, heat shock proteins, hormonal changes. reproductive, miscarriages, birth defects, effects on sperm. We talked about this stuff, people on the laptops and things on their, on their lap affecting sperm counts, DNA damage, suppression of DNA repair mechanisms. Cancer, childhood leukemia, adult leukemia, lymphoma, brain and nervous system tumors, acoustic neuroma, melanoma, male breast cancer. It's all things that are going to be affected. The blood, the lymph, the nerves, and the skin. Underlying at the very bottom, the 4 things that are going to be affected the most. Blood, lymph, nerves, skin. Other reported effects. Suppression of immune function, cellular changes, leakage in the blood-brain barrier, effects on brain waves, ALS, Alzheimer's, and then question marks with some of the bottom ones. So this was a patient, I had accidentally blocked his age. He's about 45 years old, came in, adjustment stuff, and then I was talking about rapid heartbeat all the time. Feels like it may be related to his job. Started 3 to 3.5 years ago. They had him on a beta blocker. They didn't know what was going on, so they put him on a beta blocker. He comes in, he was 50% improved for things I was treating him with. I was treating his brain, cortisol, heart stuff, but then he mentioned with his work, he's got a radio that he keeps over his chest. I go, you got to ditch that radio. You absolutely got to ditch that radio because that's going to affect your heart. As soon as I had him get rid of that radio, whew, everything was gone. It was a complete game changer for him. He could not believe that that radio had that much effect with the EMF that was leaked from that, throwing off his heart rhythm. And he was on a medication, a beta blocker, to slow down his heart because of the side effect of that radio. So what EMF level is safe? You could go to the emfcenters.com. We're going to refer to this chart a few times. Henrik will maybe mention a few things as well. You could download this off their website. If you get a tester and you're testing things at your house and work, home, wherever, a nice level, nice thing to refer back to as you're checking things out. So it's 3 kinds of EMFs: magnetic fields, electric fields, and radio frequency fields. This slide came out a little bit blurry, but it emphasizes a few things I want to show you guys. Here's your regular cell phone stuff right now. 5G is going to jump to here, up to here. You're going to, now microwaves are up top, 5G up to 100 hertz, gigahertz. Thermal effect, this is all thermal effect. So don't tell me that this new technology will have no effect on people. This chart shows it very well right where it's at. You want to stand in front of a microwave all day long and get cooked? Unfortunately, the testing for 5G, you have to have very, very expensive devices. My device I have only goes up to 5 gigahertz, so it doesn't measure to the highest capacity of what people could be being exposed to. ELF, magnetic fields, are a particular EMF component most often linked to serious health effects such as childhood leukemia and other cancers in the research studies. Common sources include electric power lines, electrical wiring, lighting fixtures, electrical appliances, and most electrical devices. Wiring problems and stray electrical current in metal pipes can also create surprisingly high levels. ELF, electric fields, are also linked to important biological effects, but have been studied less. Anecdotally, they are often involved when people feel sensitive to EMF fields. Common sources include hidden electrical wiring, power cords for lamps and devices, and power lines. Radio fields have been linked to various types of cancers, tumors, and health effects similar to ELF fields. Radio fields are commonly emitted from modern wireless and electronic equipment, cell phone towers, cell phones, cordless telephones, wireless computers, Wi-Fi routers, baby monitors, smart meters, TV and radio broadcast towers, microwaves, radar, etc. So, like I said, these are just different examples, jumping back to the chart so you get a good visual and keep seeing, the wavelength from non-ionizing towards ionizing, how that changes in different sources below. 4G and 5G. Now this diagram shows that this does not go and penetrate through a building, but I have seen recent videos with the 5G measuring devices that yes, it can penetrate through these buildings. What causes geopathic stress? Schumann resonance, which is a natural frequency of the Earth's magnetic field, can be disrupted or distorted by underground water streams, geological fault lines in underground caverns, and certain mineral deposits such as coal, oil, and iron. Geopathic stress is a distorted or disrupted electromagnetic field of the Earth. Sleeping or spending a lot of time in the geopathic stress zone can ill affect our health. And this is what's intriguing. Henrik came to my house. You can see him with the dowsing rods. And Dr. Tent talked about this at his energy lecture. Dowsing rods and pinpointing these geopathic stress zones outside or even within your house. So you could be affected by the Earth's EMF that it radiates. If you're in one of these zones, live or sleep on these zones, you could have ill effect from this. This was his measurement coming to my house, some of the things that he measured in their lab values, and it's pretty cool because I was using my device, he's using his device, and we're jumping around and trying to see if we were getting some consistent measurements back and forth. He will give you his information, and he will also be talking in a little bit after I'm done talking about the rest of the stuff as well. Dirty electricity, a form of electropollution, refers to the high-frequency voltage transients in the electrical wiring inside buildings produced by computers, dimmer switches, etc. These contaminate the standard 60 hertz electric current and create unhealthy levels of electromagnetic fields. Dirty electricity elevates blood sugar among electrically sensitive diabetics and may explain uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. I've been talking about this for a while. These are some of the devices, and I'll show you another one. I'll show a zoomed up picture of the one I was using on the left. Henrik's was on the right, and he'll explain some of that too. This was at my house, and we were just unloading and getting ready to sweep the house and check for things. Is dirty electricity causing type 3 diabetes? The rates of diabetic issues are going up, as well as all EMF issues with phones, Wi-Fi, smart meters, 5G, you name it. And there's more speculation that this dirty electricity is pushing people in that diabetic direction. Sources of dirty electricity: computers, speed motors, television sets, entertainment units, energy efficient appliances, energy efficient lighting, dimmer switches, power tools, neighbors, etc. These are all sources, and you can kind of see this. I like this diagram. You can see what the clean power looks like, and then from the fuzzy cloudy area is this dirty electricity. I'm a visual person. I kind of like that. Just more PubMed stuff and articles from 2014 just talking about dirty electricity pushing people more towards the obesity and diabetic type problems today. These were some of the devices that we're using. This was the body voltmeter on the left and the radio frequency meter on the right. This is what I was using to measure my body electricity when he came over. Gauss meter and dirty electric meter. Henrik will talk more about that. I was using the one on the left. This is a tri-field meter. Like I said, I could only go up to, I think it was, actually 6 gigahertz. So it could check some 5G stuff, but the 5G goes a lot higher than 6 gigahertz. Actually goes up to about 60 to 70 on average. But it's nice because you can switch back and forth on them and get some good measurements on all three: magnetic, electric, and radio frequency fields. What EMF level is safe? Go back to this chart. Keep referring back to this chart. This lockdown had me a little bummed. Like I said, I want to check out more things out. I want to check the electric cars out. I want to go to a spot in Novi here. There's a spot in Novi that right by the police station in the library where I normally do my lectures at. They have a cell phone tower right outside, and just a quarter mile down the street, they got power lines that come through, and on top of the power lines, they have cell phone towers that line that, and then just another quarter mile down the street they got the police station, they got the 5G tree tower. Just in a matter of like a mile and a half, it's a war zone of EMF exposure. If you follow me along on the Instagram stuff, I'm eventually going to make it out there, and I will show you live what I get with my readings just going through that area. I couldn't imagine living over there. This was my smart meter. This is my smart meter at my house. Every time I went to the smart meter, this thing was throwing off so much different amount of radiation. It was unbelievable. This is on the magnetic, the weighted magnetic measurement. You want to see this 5 and under. 5 and under, and it's at 58, and it's peaking at the average of 73. The smart meters, mine at least, is shooting a lot more radiation out the front than the back. On the back side of this is my sitting room in a love seat that's over here, and you can see on the same one, it's under 5. If I moved it to the second part of the seat, it dropped to 0.5. So not as much was shooting through the back as much as it was shooting through the front, but every time I went to go measure that, I'm like, my gosh, this thing's bonkers and does something completely different. They talk about this thing pulsing, supposedly pulsing like about every minute. One of the ways you could help get rid of all this electromagnetic stuff that we're being exposed to on a regular basis is by simple grounding yourself. Here's some of the benefits of grounding: reduce chronic pain, cortisol management, reduce inflammation in the body, wound healing improvement, improved moods, reduced inflammation, as I said. This goes back to some of my inflammation lecture. I talked about that right there as well. Now, I was measuring my body electricity with this voltmeter. This is very cool. In the picture on the left, I was measuring it in the house with my shoes on. I took off my shoes, stand on the concrete and the grass, and it dropped down. You can measure your body electricity, ground it, not ground it. You could check these earthing devices to see if they're even working for you, if you know how to use this voltmeter to check this kind of stuff. We sell Q-links at the office. This is a small way of combating some of the EMF stuff. How effective are they? It's hard to measure, and this is what I don't like, is that you can't really measure it because they talk more about live blood analysis and less cells bunching up together. So it's hard for me to say how effective some of these devices truly are. Earthing.com has some great devices. We talked about them in previous lectures, and I have a grounding mat on my bed, and I sleep better. I feel like I recover better from my workouts. I could say that at least. From them as well, you could check your outlets to see if they're properly grounded with the device that they send to you as well. I carry this around at the office. I normally have this in my pocket. This is a Blue Shield, Tesla Blue Shield, that gives me about a 5-yard radius around me of protecting me with EMF exposure. Unfortunately, kind of like the Q-Link, this also does more. You check this via live blood analysis, so using a voltmeter or checking some of this other measurement device, I can't really tell what it's doing. They've got a plug-in device that you plug it in upstairs or downstairs, and it covers a huge square footage, so I have a plug-in device for my house as well. We don't sell these at the office, but these are just things I'm kind of playing around with. There's EMF shielding paint that you could use if you were concerned about a smart meter throwing off radiation and you want to cage it or something, or do something different, or pay the fine to have a regular one. Or this, you could paint the room and have grounded paint to help discharge the electricity, the EMF that comes off of it. This is an older article, 1997, but Epstein-Barr virus reactivated by EMF issues. EMF will suppress your immune system and can activate the Epstein-Barr issue that you carry. Positive EBV detection in coronavirus disease 2019. This is in pulmonology that's actually in review. Their conclusion is EBV acute patients was found in COVID-19 patients. EBV seropositivity was associated with fever and increased inflammation. EBV reactivation may affect the treatment of COVID-19. Some of my younger patients that struggled the hardest getting over this whole COVID-19 stuff had the Epstein-Barr issue that they're battling with. Like I said, it's just going back. Let's kind of talk a little bit more about the 5G stuff. 5G can penetrate the building. So this diagram I'm not huge on, but this shows a different frequency where 4G's up and down. Right here, higher frequency, going to push more towards you and penetrate more. So back to this diagram as well. Your regular phone cell usage right here. 5G, right here. Thermal effect, non-thermal effect. As we said, scientists were wanting a delay on the rollout of 5G due to health concerns and inadequate studies. Why 5G EMFs are dangerous. Part of the problem with 5G is that the introduction doesn't mean that older wireless technologies like 4G or 3G are being replaced. Instead, 5G will accompany these older networks and work in conjunction with them. Higher frequency. Since 5G is so new, there are no long-term studies on its effects of health, on your health effects. Well, health studies on 5G. What is there that we have that we could talk about right now? While there is a long list of research on the effects of EMFs, there's only a small amount that can be linked to these types of frequencies seen with 5G radiation. So far, the studies have highlighted concerns with skin, eye health, and bacterial resistance. And this was a study 2015, the effects on skin. Bottom line, 5G is going to penetrate deeper into your skin. Your eye health, this is 2009. Study in 2009 from Japan's medical university found that thermal effects induced by MMWs can penetrate below the surface of the eye. It concluded that 60 gigahertz MMW antennas can cause thermal injuries of varying levels. 5G effects on bacterial resistance. The MMWs seem to be making the bacteria more resistant to antibiotics. This is very important to understand that this is going to contribute to antibiotic resistance, because where are they rolling out 5G at a lot? Hospitals. Hospitals are going to be a hot zone with having 5G, so this contributes to antibiotic resistance at a place that already has antibiotic resistance from the overuse of antibiotics. This is going to be a health concern. One of the big reasons, too, that I meant to mention earlier, that a lot of people thought this whole 5G stuff was correlated with coronaviruses. They kept showing a map that, the coronavirus outbreaks are in these big city areas, and 5G is also in these big city areas as well. That's where they're going to roll out 5G in general, just where there's more population of people in these bigger cities. So to correlate both maps, I don't think so. And like I said, 5G, the canary in the coal mine is going to be your kids and your animals who will be affected first. This is May 2020, fresh literature, adverse health effects of 5G mobile networking technology under real life conditions. Look at the side effects. You can see the side effects from wireless radiation. Their conclusion is there's a large body of data from laboratory testing studies showing that the previous and present generation of wireless technology have significant adverse health impacts, and yet we're going to be an experiment because they're just rolling this out on people right now. Is your smartphone compromising your brain? One of the coolest things is when I was using my meter to measure the EMF issues that are emitted from these phones, some of the older generation of phones, and I was checking iPhones in the office, and not so much that I didn't get to an Android, but I was checking some of these. The older ones didn't seem to emit as much as the newer ones. They were pushing more radiation off the back versus the front. But now when they roll out the 5G, these cell phone companies, if you want to optimize 5G to the best of their ability, you're going to have to upgrade to a 5G based phone, which you're just going to be an antenna to this 5G stuff coming to you. So I will be one of the last people to ever be upgrading to these newer phones, because just from the ones I'm checking in the office that are newer generation phones with my meter tester, I'm getting higher readings, dramatically more than my current phone. And yes, this stuff will cook your brain. Screen time has made your kids absolutely crazy. You talk to your counselors, you talk to your psychologists. The craziest kids that we deal with in our office are the ones who are the hardcore YouTubeaholics, the gamers, and too much screen time. Without a question of a doubt, it's unbelievable how much the screen time is making your kids crazy. Low-grade chronic inflammation zaps dopamine in your brain. EMF creates inflammation, decrease your dopamine, decrease your motivation. So many people that I'm running into patient-wise have such lack of motivation, and their drive is just cooked. The lockdown, everyone's screen time through the roof, more EMF exposure, just EMF exposure in general. People's dopamine levels are cooked. The motivation is shot. I have got to emphasize this because if I could have you do one functional medicine-based test, it would be doing a hair analysis test or other heavy metal testing, because if you contain heavy metals and are toxic with heavy metals, and I kid you not when I say only 2 out of 10 people come back with a good, clean hair analysis, metal conducts electricity. You will grab more, you'll be an antenna to EMF and electricity if you have high amounts of heavy metals. And this is stuff I talked about in some of my old slides from 3-4 years ago from my heavy metal lecture that you can find on YouTube. Melatonin is something that's great that you could supplement with on a regular basis. It's a strong antioxidant. All this EMF exposure is suppressing the melatonin levels on people. A lot of people have sleep issues due to the lack of good melatonin. This is a very intriguing slide I'm going to show you guys next. Alpha waves in the human brain are between 6 and 8 hertz. The wave frequency of human cavity resonates between 6 and 8 hertz. All biological systems operate in the same frequency range. The human brain's alpha waves function in this range, and electrical resonance of the earth is between 6 and 8 hertz. Thus, our entire biological system, the brain and the earth itself, work on the same frequencies. If we can control that resonance system electronically, we can directly control the entire mental system of humankind. 5G, nanotechnology, conspiracy. Here's some of the research articles that I was posting from before for those who want to dive in some of the articles. So where do I start? Test the EMF at your house and your work. Do a hair test, check for heavy metals. A urine organic acids test could check for your glutathione levels and your antioxidants. Ground or use earthing products. People that will benefit from a hair test, these are other patients I run this on as well. Here's what a hair analysis looks like. Heavy metals on the top, which I'd be concerned about. Looks at your digestion and your minerals on the bottom. For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world. United we stand, divided we fall. It's an election year. My gosh, they're keeping everyone divided. You could find us all around. I'm going to roll through this so I could get Henrik up here. Previous lectures on YouTube. Now, before I walk past them, let me just make sure it's safe to go by them.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Jeff, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I've been a patient for this office since 2015, and I'm a patient of Dr. Tent. So I think I know this staff pretty well. And when I got wind of Dr. Jeff's EMF lecture, I was excited, so I contacted him and went over to his house. We had some fun there in the afternoon. We evaluated his home, and we saw a couple of pictures, earlier from that event. And then he asked me to fill in a little, come in here and do a little bit more deep dive in what we did, how we do our evaluations and whatnot. So I'm here to do that, and I think based on what he showed earlier, I'm going to touch on a lot of stuff, similar stuff, and then I also divert a little bit different, point different things out. So anyway, this is me with a proper haircut. This is me after 12 weeks without a haircut. Thank you, Governor Whitmer. But hopefully I'm presentable as I am. This is what I do on a part-time basis. I have this company called BioVital, RF Wellness Services, and I try to help people evaluate their radiation situation, do an evaluation. I'm looking at the radio frequencies, extreme low frequency, the magnetic fields, dirty electricity, and the geopathic stress. I also try to do mitigation, which means that we try to figure out ways to eliminate or minimize exposure to the different radiation fields. I have a website. My phone number is there. There is a website as well, and a email, so you can always get hold of me. But anyway, so let's move to the next slide. So crisis, we don't have anything called crisis. I mean, come on, nobody sees anything, hears anything, smells anything, it's just a bright sunny day, right? But we do have a lot of issues. Dr. Jeff touched on pretty much everything here. Fatigue, ringing in the ears, eye problems, leg cramps, and a lot of it, I think, is because we have Mr. Smarty Pants and his friends, and they tend to pop up everywhere, and there's more and more of them every day, every week. Every year there's more smart meters, smart devices. Everything is so smart, and who doesn't want to be smart? So it's a clever way to sell technology. Smart this, smart that, smart house. Maybe not so smart. There's a jungle out there, and you see them antennas when you drive by. Dr. Jeff said, there's certain areas that you have very high density of antennas. There is actually an app that you can download. I have it on my iPhone. It's called the White Spot app, and the two pictures, one to the right and one to the left here, is basically a representation of what's out there. So you can see all these white spikes. Those are antenna towers. It tells you how far away they are and what carriers, they represent, AT&T, T-Mobile or whatnot. And you can see those colorful, looks like mushrooms or umbrellas, and that's basically the representation of the radiation pattern. So it's plentiful, and there are power poles, they are on towers, they are on water towers, buildings. These antennas pops up pretty much everywhere. And Dr. Jeff talked about canaries in the coal mine. I don't know if you noticed, but I over the last couple of years, I noticed that when I drive in the summertime, and I drive a lot. I mean, I drive 10,000, 15,000 miles a year, and a lot of it is in the summer. And I have hardly any bug splats on my car anymore. I drive to Muskegon back and forth to Novi, and hardly anything. 10, 15 years ago, you drive round trip to Myers, and you had to scrape your windshield. So where are the bees, birds, where is the bugs going? And that kind of worries me. And, people say, it's climate change, temperature is changing, climate is changing. But I say nay. I think actually we're looking at, the canaries in the coal mine. These guys are very sensitive. They use magnetic, basically a device or magnetic feelers, to orientate themselves, find their way back to the hive. And when they fly through this soup of radiation, they get confused, So I think that's a strong warning sign that where's all the bugs going, So that's going to be a big problem in the future. So, turned out we're talking about these electromagnetic spectrum to ad nauseum, basically. But I'm going to be a little bit technical and touch on it again. This one we've seen a couple of times, so we know basically where we are talking about, where we are. We are basically existing in the visible spectrum. We are blind as bats, on either side. That's why we have to have our equipment to measure, okay. We are focusing on the beyond infrared, down in the microwaves. That's what we are doing here with my instruments. And then you have other instruments to capture the Geiger counters and whatnot, to capture the higher frequencies, X-rays and gamma rays. So we are as humans, we are very, very limited what we can feel and experience. And that's why we have to take technology to our help, to our aid, to go beyond that. So radio waves, just to try to make it simple, this is the analog radio waves. The ideal form is basically a nice sine wave. It's unmodulated. It's just same all the time. It's like waves on the ocean, just moving forward. Then we start to transfer data on the radio waves. Then we use the frequency modulation. So you can see the frequency, which frequency is basically the distance between the tops of the wave train. So now the tops of the wave trains are changing. So that some of them are tighter together, some of them are longer in between. So that's a frequency modulation. So you can transfer data with the frequency modulation, and then you have a receiver that can convert that to sound or whatnot. And even before that, in the early stage of radio, we had the amplitude modulation, which was basically that the frequency was the same, so the distance between the tops is the same, but now the amplitude, which is the height of these wave trains, are now changing. So at that time, they had data transfer with the amplitude modulation. So what's new is our digital radio waves. Now, the pattern here kind of resembles the analog wave, but they generated it differently. So because this is digital, this is ones and zeros. and not the analog, you just change over time. So now they had to change, they could create a wave pattern by these spikes, so there's ones and zeros, and they pack them together, and they basically creates this form that they transfer the data. But the problem with digital signals are the spikes, because they're extremely high energy. And I mean, you can see the curve. I mean, it looks like it could sting you. It's very, very sharp, very, very pointy. And those spikes or points, that's what creates problem with our bodies and our tissue and whatnot. And then back to our dirty electricity, the superimposed waves. So basically, you come a clean electricity wave is supposed to come from the power grid. That's not always the case. It comes into your house, you hook up your computer, your pigtail light bulbs, appliances of all sorts, and they don't just consume energy, they also give back to your wires this pattern. So I think that's because it's very similar with the dirty electricity. I think also that's why the dirty electricity is also giving you very similar health issues or wellness issues that we already talked about. So this is something also that's creates problems, and it's all wires in your house, and it can actually come from the power grid. So it's not just a pure sine wave that comes in from the utility pole. Okay, so that's the technical part. Now, frequency testing evaluation, that's what this company that I'm working with will try to do for people that feel that they want to know what's going on in the neighborhood or inside the house. Maybe they have some health issues that they're hard to explain. It's not everyone that has the ability to go to Dr. Jeff and talk about it. Then he knows so much. He has the background to kind of iron out what might be the problem. But most doctors, I would say, are pretty clueless about what can be behind the symptoms. So anyway, I come out. Depending on what we want to test for, we test the house, the property, the neighborhood, your work, whatever, where you feel like you want to have evaluated. I compile a report. You saw an example earlier. I'm going to show you a better, more extensive report I did here in a minute. Then we can decide to target areas that is of trouble. We can find solution to minimize exposure, the so-called mitigation, and then very important is also retest after you put countermeasures in place. So you can actually create a worse scenario because there might be some unintended consequences. You put a shield up, in your bedroom against the outer wall because there's something out there that transmits through the walls, and then all of a sudden you have the microwave start bouncing around, and you can create a hotspot somewhere else. So you have to detect that and act accordingly. So before and after is very, very important. Okay, so this is a recent survey I did. It's actually in my own neighborhood where I live. The city decided to, or wants to, erect a 300-foot tower right on the beach where we live. It's a very strategic location, and they haven't said straight out, but I'm not surprised if that within a year or so we have tons of cell phone antennas up in this tower. So I got involved with the neighborhood association, and I canvassed the neighborhood here one Saturday. I picked some strategic points or places, and I had my RF meter. I'm going to show that meter here in the demo here in a few minutes. So basically, what I put my areas where I wanted. Typically is road intersections, so they're easy to identify. For fun, I had my iPhone 6 with me, so I checked how many bars I had at every location. And then my acoustimeter, I took the peak values, the fluctuating peak and the average. And you can see here that pretty much everything is green, which indicates that we have safe values according to the Bioinitiative Report 2012. We have a few areas that has the pink, which is then elevated and marginal safe. And I think it because these areas have a direct line of sight to the closest tower. And you can see that the closest tower is 2.5, 2.8 miles away. So it's quite a distance, but you can see it sticking up over the trees, and it's a lake surface, so there's no obstructions, so that the radiation can travel freely. So this is the before, this is what we have today. So it's going to be interesting to see if this tower, going to be built here in the future, see how these values are changing. So anyway, so try to find some ammo to go against the city to prove that, this is not really a good idea, we'd like to have it somewhere else, push the problem to another neighborhood. That's not really fair, but, what do you do? We're always looking out for, where we live, and, really don't want to change anything. And it's a tough, it's a tough situation, because the municipality and the cell phone carriers, they are heavyweights, and they have a lot of money and power. And if they want to have something done, a tower in a specific location, it's very hard to fight it. So anyway, I wanted to show the city what we might face in the future if they're going to build this tower. So just a few miles up the road where I live, like 3 miles up the road, we have a neighborhood that I think is very close to what we might face in the future. We can see, sorry, I need to, there we go. That's the one. All right, a lot of red stuff here. Anyway, so in this neighborhood, they have twin towers, 2 towers about 100 feet apart for some reason, that is littered with cell phone antennas. And bad part here is that we have very close proximity to houses. So we are looking at 150 yards to 300 yards, basically. We have a street, there's multiple duplexes. There is a kindergarten facility. There is an Lincoln Park Elementary School is there. Everything is just, within, a few hundred yards. And you can see here that, now we have everything is deep red. We have a little pink, a little green here, but then now almost 1,000 yards away. But this is a big concern, because now these values jump 10 times. And we are talking residential area. People live here, okay? You stay here. The kids are in school, 6-8 hours a day. People work, the staff in school, they get exposed to this. All the houses down the street are exposed to this 24/7, 365. So I think this is a good example of what we might face. So I produced this, I put everything together, I sent it to the city, and we'll see what happens, in the future. But it's interesting to know at least before. Now we'll see what happens, if this tower is going to get built. Just a side note, I don't know how many thought about it, but if you do think about it, drive through your cities, how many cell phone towers are actually on school property? Either dab smack middle of the, next to the football field, or next to the main building, or at least in the outskirts of the school property. So, it's good with good connection, right? But, is it really worth it, to put these high radiation, levels right over the head of the kids? Like Dr. Jeff said, canaries in the coal mines, kids and animals, And in this case, the schools, it's definitely kids. So I'm not comfortable with that for sure. And when you think about these things, you see them all, everywhere. But you have to kind of take the red pill to wake up and start looking around, and then you see all these things. Okay, so what does this mean? Dr. Jeff talked a lot about 5G, and so this is what we typically see. This is a 4G antenna tower, so this is a monopole, littered with antennas up at the top. The new 5G, those antennas are going to look different. This is a picture from Chicago, I believe. So now the antennas moves down to street level. So these are the top of light poles, power poles, on buildings. There's much more street level. These guys are maybe 150, 200 feet up. They're like 2-3 miles apart. These guys are going to be maybe 500 feet apart, much more, closer to where we live and our lives. And just another side note here, 5G, 4G, Dr. Jeff didn't touch on it, but when it comes to health effects, for some reason when they develop these systems, they put the frequencies in certain spots. For the 4G, they put the frequency range right where the radio waves excites the water molecules. So it's basically a mini microwave that you're holding in your hand, putting in your pocket, or the computer is communicating with 2.4 to 5 gigahertz, and that's basically a microwave. So the heat tissue that create issues with the water molecules, because the body is 80% water, so of course the body is going to respond to those frequencies. Well, it happened to be that the 5G, I've heard that the 60 gigahertz range, give or take, affects the oxygen molecules. So now the new system here will start to monkey around with the oxygen. And I don't know, but it makes me nervous to think about, these radiation fields going to start monkeying around with the oxygen. What's going to happen with the oxygen? Try to bind to the hemoglobin in your blood, for the exchange in your lungs when they start to excite the oxygen molecules. So that's a big health issue that nobody talks about. I've heard about it, and that makes me nervous, because if the oxygen levels are low as it is, if this system now starts tampering with oxygen on top of everything else, it might be tough to breathe, and then you have all sorts of other health issues coming your way. And if you pay attention to what happens around you, if somebody starts to put up these antennas or nodes, pay attention to how you feel, how you respond, over time, after this change happens. You still fine, dandy, or do you have starting to have issues to breathe, issues to sleep, etc. So just be aware of the technology out there, and you have to be able to feel how you respond to this yourself. Okay, so again, what does it mean? No Wi-Fi. Can you be so cruel? Nobody can live without Wi-Fi. My whole livelihood, revolves around Wi-Fi. I have my laptop and my cell phone, and everything I do is on the run. I can't sit home. I can't be tethered to the wall. Stupid hard lines and stuff. No. Everything has to be wireless. And I understand. I enjoy wireless technology as well. It's a necessary evil, but I try to minimize my exposure. I try to be smart about it. I have my little devices to protect me, and I'm more conscious about what I'm using, and try to minimize my exposure. And we'll talk about that in a minute here. Okay, so what can you do? So the RF damage or damage from this, radiation exposure is cumulative. So it means that the dangers develops or increase over time. So if you can't eliminate it, you have to do something. And you have two best friends: the minimize time of exposure and maximize the distance from the RF source. So time at exposure minimized, and the distance are your best friends. You back off from the source, it's diminished quite rapidly. You don't need to back off far, so you just have a tenth or a hundredth of the radiation next to it, to the device. And you can shield yourself or the areas where you spend the most time. So inside is probably the most easiest to you can eliminate all the RF emitting devices. You can hardwire your PC, remove the cordless phone, the DECT phone, etc. So no Wi-Fi, and that's typically what we have in my house. All the computers, all the TVs are hardwired. We do have our cell phones, of course, but that's pretty much it. And it means no Bluetooth, because Bluetooth, even though it's a different name, is still similar. It's a wireless system, and we're going to talk about that also in a slide here a little bit later on. All right, more things to do. Shield walls, windows facing towers or the RF source. Dr. Jeff showed the black paint that is conductive, that you can paint. You can actually create a Faraday's cage inside your home or a room by painting the walls, putting film on the windows. And I've seen videos on doing that. It's a tremendous job. It's costly, but it works. It's effective. You can shield your bed either with an extra wall of aluminum foil or something, or maybe drape a silver cloth canopy over the bed, because the silver then protects you. It's a conductive sheeting. Could take care of the radiation. As I said, eliminate all the RF emitting devices, and then again, test, before and after. Is it better? Is it worse? What did we do right? What did we wrong? Do we need to do something else? And if nothing else helps, you might have to consider, selling and moving. It's a tough decision, but if you really have issues, we can trace back to RF exposure. There's no going back. That's the problem when you start to develop the hypersensitivity for these things. That is just going to get worse. That's the tough truth. All right, so I'll take some time here and make a few demonstrations. I have some devices with me here that we're going to hook up, and I have my RF meter with me. The thing I like with this one, the reason I bought it, is that it has an audio function, so I can actually listen in to the noise that it picks up, and sometimes it's helpful to determine what the source might be by listening into to the noise it emits. For instance, a home router, Wi-Fi router, typically sounds like a machine gun, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. It's very, it's pulsing very hard. So that's an easy way to determine that, either it's one in the house or it might be the neighbor's Wi-Fi router. So I'm just going to have a minute here to hook them up, and then we'll see what we can get sound. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take the opportunity to show a little bit, different devices, how they sound, and they kind of emphasize, what we're looking at, and that typically you don't see or hear, but there's a lot of action going on, that we can detect with the devices we have to measure with. So I'm just going to start first. This is my acoustimeter that I use for the RF evaluation. It takes frequency responses from 200 megahertz to 8 gigahertz. So it takes pretty much everything wireless that we use today. And again, I'm going to start listening just to the room here and see, you know, what situation we are facing right now where we do this recording. So don't pick up much. Yeah, not too bad. You know, you don't hear much sound, and the values are not, you know, awfully high. So that's a good thing. You know, this seems like that's okay. Maybe picking up a router. You can hear that sound. Yeah, okay. So that's good. You know, that's typically what you hear when you go, you know, in your house or in your neighborhood. So that's one thing. Now we're gonna do this is a cordless phone, a deck phone. Maybe not used as much these days. 10 years ago there was a hot commodity. Now everybody's using their cell phones, but you know, still they might be around. They might be sitting on your you know, nightstand next to your bed or in the kitchen, and you don't think much about it. Okay, so I'm gonna hook that up. And see what we get. Okay, so here we have quite an aggressive signal, and we are the meter is pegging out 6.0. It's more than 6.0. So we have a heavy, you know, field. The average is basically around 1,000 to 1,200 microwatts per square meter. So, and the bad boy is actually the handset when it's out of range. So now this one is just 6,000, 7,000 microwatts per square meter. So this one is extremely aggressive when it comes to the radiation. The handset is about 1,200 to 1,400, so that's still active. But even if you put them together, you know, you know, now you're supposed to, you think that, well, now it doesn't need to communicate anymore because the handset is in the base, but it's not the case. It's still 4,000 microwatts per square meter. So this device, even though it looks benign, is extremely powerful. It radiates all the time, which is kind of weird because the European deck phones don't radiate when the handset is in the cradle. So I don't know why American phones are made this way, but I guess it's because we're Americans. We just have to take it, you know. So, but anyway, so I would not have this one sitting on my bedstand next to my pillow. You know, stay away from it. You know, best thing is just to toss it out because it's a very aggressive emitter of RF for sure. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, next I like to just take my own iPhone 6 and I'm going to turn it into active mode and see what happens here. Okay. All right, so now it's 6 points. It's pegging out the meter already. The average is about 3,000 microwatts per square meter, and I think it's because I just activated it. It takes a while for it to settle down, and then it kind of go dormant. But it doesn't. Do we have something else that radiates around here? Oh, there we go. Now it's settled down. Okay, so now it's quiet. It's the average you know, field went down quite a bit. So this is typically what happens when it sits there, you know. And Jeff, would you try to call my phone and see what happens? All right, now so peg the meter again. So it's really strong, and then you have this one, next to your ear, and you have it there for quite some time. So it does emit a lot of radiation. So now it goes dormant again. So yeah, so that's basically those things. Just for fun, before I left for this lecture, I picked up a little Cobra walkie-talkie that I found in a drawer. I said, should I tell? No, this is walkie-talkie. It can't be much. But I said, well, why not? So basically, now this one is 5,000 microwatts per square centimeter. I don't hear any sound though, which is kind of surprising to me. But the reading here, I mean, it pegs the meter. Now it's 17,000, maximum. So this one, even though it's tiny, it just throws out a ton of radiation. And again, you have it next to your ear, next to your head. So there's a lot of devices there, that can do us harm. And, you need to be aware of it. And, again, minimize time exposure, maximize, distance to the devices. Those are your best friends. Okay, I'm going to skip the wireless mouse, the microwave oven. The microwave ovens, those can be really, really aggressive. And the old ones, they spew out a lot of radiation, even behind the machine. So if you have a room, on the other side of the kitchen wall, you get plenty of radiation when you run the microwave oven as well. Okay, be less smart. Go back to the dumb devices. It's not always smart to be smart. I see this all the time. You're walking around the city. You see these little earbuds. White, the little antenna hanging down, or you have the over the ear, the headphones, also wireless, Bluetooth, whatnot. Then you have the radiation right into your ear canal and right into. It's just an inch from the brain. And you have these on, for hours at time. Also thinking about, back what Dr. Jeff said with the radio over the heart. You have these devices in your ear. People that work at Starbucks, McDonald's, grocery stores, security guards. Everybody that's running around with a radio set, hanging attached to his ear, have this. Radio exposure, radio frequency exposure all the time. So nothing good can come out of that. This is what I use. This is a corded earbuds. This is an Radio Armor brand. There's different brands as well. The special thing with these are to really minimize what you get in your ear. Is that those little earbuds here? That's where the speaker sits, and from there on up it's just a air tube. So when I listen to my music, it's airways, same that I speak to you now, that goes in there, and whatever magnetic fields are generated are down on my chest. So these are the ones I like, and Dr. Mercola has the Bluetooth devices, and there's plenty of those, for people that want to research that. So anyway, 4G is coming everywhere, strong into your house. Smart thing, you can run your dishwasher, it communicates with your cell phone. You can set the wash cycles, and it communicates errors and everything to your phone. Again, wireless communication, another source for RF. If you're embarrassed because your stove is an old clunker, you can, fear not, because now you can buy a power plug that goes between the jack and the plug, and now your stove is smart, and it communicates with your cell phone. Now you can, set cooking times and stuff. Meet the smart toaster that gives you the weather forecast with a soot printer, I guess it is. The way it looks like, you could probably play some video games instead of reading the newspaper in the morning. And behold, the tweeting fridge, so you can, you never lose contact with your friends. So at least, well, these are just, something that I don't think they exist right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come up with stuff like this in the near future. And another thing is that if you can control your appliances, they will control you as well. So that's another aspect of wireless communication. All right, so I'm going to wrap up here with personal wearables. I wear this one every day. I have it on me right now. It's something called biogeometry, developed by Dr. Ibrahim Karim, a very interesting person, and he did some great job in Germany, a town that was heavily radiated. Citizens were really sick, and he put his biogeometry in place and got the citizens back to shape again. This is a friend of mine, Sophia Smallstorm. She has an avatarproduct.com. She sells other things, cell phone shields or cases that has silver lining in them. So you can carry them with you, and they protect you from most of the radiation. It still communicates perfectly, but you have the silver lining against your body that cuts down maybe 90% of the radiation. And ladies, for God's sake, don't put your smartphones in your bras. I've seen that myself. And there's an increase in breast cancer when you can actually see the outline of the cancer tumor, outlined perfectly with the cell phone. So that's not a good place to keep your cell phone. Okay, I believe that's my speech, and so you can reach me at this website. My phone number is here. I'm trying to service southern Michigan here between east and west coast. So if you're interested, get contact with me, and we can go from there. All right. So thanks you for the opportunity.